executive team. We have Sam Yoon here. He's the pastor at Out of our church, Newport Mesa. We got Kevin Wynn. He's the campus pastor at Irvine South, out of Irvine South. We have Angela Yee. She's our director of events and missions, and she's actually a mastermind, okay? A mastermind. She's a very, very talented person. And of course, we have Mr. DJ Schwang here, who just recently authored a book, and he is one of the key leaders of our 30.Network team. And I'm John. I'm one of the pastors at Saddleback Irvine South, and it's just great being here. I want to invite up our first speaker here. This is Daniel M., and we're going to have a session here together. Daniel is the director of church multiplication for newchurches.com and Lifeway Christian Resources. He is also the teaching pastor at the Fellowship, which is a church in Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville. Most of you probably didn't think that when you saw him, right? Nashville, Tennessee.
I'm not from there, so.
He recently published a book with Ed Stetzer called Planting Missional Churches, Your Guide to Starting Churches That Multiply. And I highly recommend you buy this book. And this is actually going to be a prize. We're going to give this out a little bit later, so please pay attention and don't play doodle jump on your phone during this session. And so can we welcome Daniel in here?
Yeah!
So Daniel, let me... Dan, please get a couple minutes, share us just a little bit about your background, how you got to Nashville, of all places, because most of us are thinking like, you're from Nashville?
Yeah.
Asians exist in Nashville?
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy, right? So share a little bit of how you got there.
So my parents immigrated from Korea in the 70s to Vancouver, so I'm Canadian. Yeah. So any other Canadians in here? No? Okay, yeah, nice. Represent. So I grew up there, and then I'll share a little bit in my talk a little bit later about that. But basically, I started in ministry actually out in Ottawa, and then moved to Montreal, and then I was in Korea for a couple of years at Onudi, and then in Edmonton, and that's when, after serving for about 10 years, pastoring and just exploring, different, as you lead, you figure out what you're good at, right? And you figure out what you're bad at. And you figure out what you're wired, what God has wired you to do. And what I really discerned at the end of that was really the fact that I love helping and resourcing pastors. This opportunity came up to move to Nashville to work at Lifeway, to basically figure out how Lifeway was going to resource church planters, multi-site churches, helping churches develop their leadership, doing leadership development, their leadership pipeline. So that's what I came down to Nashville to do. I have 3 kids, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and I've been married for 10 years.
All right, thank you so much. We're here about raising up the next generation of Asian American leaders in the church. Please share us about how we could do that practically, maybe even the why, answering the why question when it comes to casting vision, the type of voice that we need, and what mentoring looks like. So go ahead, please have your thoughts about that.
Yeah, when we look at leadership, a lot of leadership has to do with initiative, right? And initiative is one of those double-edged swords, right? Where you get, okay, if I take initiative, am I going to be aggressive? Right? If I take initiative, what do I want to take? I don't really want to be the first one to raise my hand up. Or it's when someone's talking and they're finishing up. Do you wait a little bit for there to be a silent pause for you to speak up, or are you aggressive? Right? And it's one of those things where it's, if you don't take initiative, right? If you don't take initiative, then how are you going to find opportunities? But then there's also the tension of, but you want to wait on the Lord, right? You want to let the Lord go before you. Right, so what I want to present here is just kind of a little bit of a framework to help us wrestle with that tension, because it's not as simple as just saying, hey, you want to do something? Go and do it. Right? It doesn't happen like that. Yeah.
Go ahead. We want to know. How do we do that? Yeah, these guys are eager to know right now. Yes.
Do you want me to? Okay, so
they don't want to hear me. They want to hear you.
You want me to present that?
They don't want to read the book, man.
You want me to present that?
Give us chapter 5.
That's the secret
Go
sauce.
ahead.
All right, let me
Here's
try.
the board. Here we go.
Okay.
Class is in session, folks.
All right, so let me draw it. So when you look at that, it's basically, okay, so everyone has dreams, right? Or we all have dreams. So if you look at this, and whatever your dreams might be, you have this idea of, okay, what do you want to, what is an area of your life that you want to see change in? You know, what are your dreams? Is there a vision in your future? Is there something that gets you excited? If someone were to ask you, right, if time and money were no object, what would you do with your life? What would you say? Right? If you had no expectations from your parents, if you had no expectations from anyone else, what would you say? Really, if everything was let go and you're like, okay, if time and money were no object, what would you do? Right? And there are these rumblings, there are these things that are in our hearts, these dreams that we have. Right? What do you want to be doing when you're 60? Right? What is that impact that you want to have? Right? So we all have these dreams, but the thing is, it's not just you take initiative and you get to that dream, but initiative is actually all the way over here. Right? So there's a lot that happens in between you taking initiative to you accomplishing your dreams, but it's not just a matter of saying, I have these dreams, and we pray and we fast and we ask the Lord to bring them about. Obviously there is that part of faithfulness to the Lord, but there's also the aspect of, okay, what is in our court? What do we need to be doing? So this here is the idea of where you are making a decision to be proactive and to move you towards your dream. However, as you see, there's this large space, so there's actually all of these things here that point to you taking initiative. So let's, if you guys want to yell out here, why do we take initiative? We want to get something done, and we say, okay, I'm going to go do it, and we take that first initiative. What are some of the reasons we take initiative? Sorry?
Lead.
Pardon?
To lead.
To lead? Okay, yeah, because you want to lead, right? There's that desire to lead.
Change something.
Right, to change something. Sometimes we're copying, right? We're like, oh, that person's doing something pretty cool. I want to do that. Yeah. Right? So, what else? Someone told you to do something? Right? It's like, do it. Right? And okay, what if I don't? I don't care, just do it. Right? Right? So someone told you to do something.
Impact.
Pardon?
Impact. To make an impact.
Yeah, to make an impact. Yeah. I mean, maybe there's some inward reflection, right? And we look at the way that God has talented us, right? And sometimes it's the Holy Spirit prompting, right? Right, so there are all these, when we go and start and do something, there's all of these reasons that might cause us to go and do it. Right? And it's understanding, okay, if this is what we need to do, or I want to go start a podcast, right, like Sam, or I want to go serve in this church, or I want to preach more, right, or I want to be able to work on my teaching gifts, or I want to be able to lead a church. We have to take that initiative, but there's always something behind us taking that initiative, right? Now there's actually something here, right, called the in-between place. Right, so we're still not at our dream, right? We have these motivations for taking initiative, but then you have this in-between place, right, where you're waiting, right? You're waiting on someone else's decision, right? You're waiting on someone else's decision, and it's what God is, and possibly it's also what God is doing, right? So when let's say you're a senior in high school and you put out your college applications. You did your SATs, you worked hard, you put out your applications, and then you took your initiative, you did all that, and then you're waiting. Right? It's this place where you can't actually do anything. Right? Or what about that time where you said, I love you for the first time, and maybe it was a split second, maybe it was 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and you're hoping to God that the other person says, I love you back. Right? It's that in-between place. Yeah, amen, right? Or you put out your resume. Right, you put out your resume and you're waiting to hear back to see if you get the job or not. I feel like a lot of our lives here it's lived in this in-between place. It's the idea of the parable of the talents, right? Where the owner gave him 5 talents, 2 talents, 1 talent, 1 away. No one knew when the guy was going to come back, What is your response going to be during this in-between time? We have these dreams that God has placed on our hearts. And the thing is, because we live in such an instant gratification culture, where you want something, you want to read something, you just download it, right? Right? Or you want an app, you just get it. You want to read Multi-Asian Church, you just download it right now. It's an ebook, right? I mean, everything is, you can even order, it's so lazy, right? I mean, you can order your Starbucks on your phone and just go in a store, pick it up without saying hi to anyone, right? It's just we're living in this instant gratification culture, but the thing is, a lot of our lives are actually lived in this in-between place. If God is giving you a dream, a vision for the future, what we actually tend to do is we forget that there's time in between. We think if God is giving you a vision, then it's supposed to be right now. Right? Because of our cultural influence. Oh, God wants me to plant a church? Or God wants me to go lead this? God wants me to do this? And it's like, okay, I'm going to go do it. So we quit our jobs, or we do this, or we act on an impulse because we feel that's how we are conditioned by our culture. That's not how God intends, but it's a lot of times how we are influenced by our culture. So a lot of our life is actually lived in this in-between space, right? After you take initiative, what are you going to do? Are you going to take control, right? What is your impulse? After you submit your application, or after you ask for something, what do? Do you take control and you're like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go make some phone calls. I'm gonna go try to make this happen. Or do you take the passive approach and you're like, okay, well, I've done my part. I've prepared. I've led, and now it's on my court. So I'm just gonna pray about it. And no one calls you back. Right? And then you're trying to get your first job, right? You're trying to get a job and you're like, people tell you, well, you should go visit the place, or you should call them back. So do you call back 5 times? Do you call back 10 times? Do you call back once? Do you not call? And it's like, where does this, what do you do, right? What do you do when your dream, what's standing in between you and your dream is someone else, and God is doing something? There's something in that place. The step here, what happens in this place is actually, because we live so much of our life in this place, this is actually where God is going to shape you and deepen you the most. This is not a side thing. That in-between place of waiting is where God will actually shape you the most. If you look at David in the desert, and you look at the beginning of his life and the end of his life, he was in the desert for a long period of time in both places. Right? At the beginning, he was anointed as king. He knew he was king, but he was being chased by Saul. He had an opportunity and a moment to take leadership on his own, right? To take it and be like, okay, I am king. I mean, Samuel anointed me as king. He had even though it was not in his court, he had the ability and the opportunity to do it, but he chose to wait on God. Right? We see the end of his life with Absalom as well. We see, when Paul, think about this, when Paul was in Rome, right? When Paul was in Rome, after he was sentenced to death, and you look at the end of Acts, what does he do? Right? Does he just kind of sulk and be like, oh, I shouldn't have appealed to Caesar? Right? I shouldn't have appealed to Caesar, because you see the guy saying, well, if you didn't appeal to Caesar, we would have let him free. Does he sulk on that? Or does he say, well, I'm in Rome, my life is going to come to an end, I'm done? No, he actually, in Acts 28, he says, in verse 30, then he stayed 2 whole years in his own rented house, and he welcomed all who visited him, proclaiming the kingdom of God and teaching the things concerning the Lord Jesus Christ with boldness, with full boldness and without hindrance. Right? He decided to live in this moment. Right? He decided to live in this moment. And what happens is, as you live in this moment, something happens here. You get your response. Right? Ultimately, you hear something back. Right? Ultimately, Saul died. Right? Ultimately, what happened? We don't know what happened at the end of Acts 28, but something happened. right? Something happens at the end, and it comes to the place where it's now your response again. So what is your response going to be? Is it going to be to analyze or to compare how this has aligned with your initiative and your dream? Are you going to try to wrestle through that and try to manipulate your way to try to tweak your future into the way you want it to be? Do you doubt? Do you respond in faithfulness? After waiting on God, trusting in Him, Proverbs 3, right? After waiting on God, after trusting in Him, after leaning not on your own understanding and submitting your plans to Him, are you going to trust the Lord and trust that the Lord will make your path straight? Are you going to trust that His ways are higher than your ways and that His thoughts are higher than your thoughts? And then what happens here is you either get to there or you actually come back here. Because a lot of our life is actually lived right here. Right? So what it comes down to, in and through all of this, is you have dreams that God has placed in your heart. Right? We all have dreams. And we all have dreams because we have the privilege of living in this country. If you lived in most of the other parts of the world, even if, let's say you lived in Greece, for example, where the unemployment rate is, what is it? I mean, it's horrible. Right? Or you live in many parts. When I was on missions in China or in Thailand, and you talk to these kids and you're like, what are your dreams for life? And they're like, what are you talking about? I just want to get my next meal. That's my dream. Right? And we live in this world where I can actually ask you, if time and money were no object, what would you do with your life? And you would actually be able to go to Starbucks and think about that. Right? Like, we actually could do that. Right? What are you going to do with these dreams that God has placed in your heart? And here's the thing. In and through all this, while God might have placed these dreams in your heart, while the initiative that you took may have been the Holy Spirit's prompting, a desire to lead, an inward reflection, or any of these things, God is less concerned with your destination than He is with your journey. Right? And that's something that we need to take to heart. He is less concerned with our destination and in us living out or achieving those dreams than He is in the journey and what happens in the day-to-day. So are you going to live? Are you going to be faithful in the little? Are you going to take initiative to serve others? And are you going to trust in the Lord? So that's kind of that framework there.
All right. Thank you so much. Guys, Daniel's going to be here for the rest of the conference until Thursday. So please run into him. Please ask him questions. He is a great guy just to pick his brain and try to figure out, a lot of your questions about leadership and things like that. He'll be here. We want to try to move on to our next speaker. If we have time, we want to do some of the Q&A at the afterwards. And so thank you so much. Let's give it up for Daniel. All right. I want to invite our next speaker here, Mr. Dave Ferguson. Go ahead and please come join us here.
Yeah.
This is Dave Ferguson. If you guys don't know, we are here at his conference.
No, you guys are here. Thank you for coming.
Dave Ferguson is the lead pastor of Community Christian Church, and how do I say this properly?
Chicagoland.
Chicagoland. Okay, we're just going to talk Chicagoland. Okay, I was going to say the name of the city. He is the president of Exponential Conference. He is here running this conference. He birthed this conference, and he is here. And he is an author of many books. Recently, just came out with a book called Starting Over, Your Life Beyond Regrets, which focuses on giving up your regrets to God and actually using them as opportunities to start over. And so, book just came out September 20th. Please check that out on Amazon. Great book. Thank you for being with us, Dave. It's so great to be here. Can you share a little bit about that book that you just wrote? How did that come out? Where did that idea come from? What was the passion behind that?
The mission statement for Community Christian Church, the church that my brother and I, a few friends from college, founded, and we've been leading ever since then, is helping people find their way back to God. That's what we're all about. How do we help people find their way back to God? And our experience is that everybody is probably in various states of being a prodigal, and we're either finding our way back for the first time or finding our way back again this week. And so we wrote a book called Finding Your Way Back to God. It was based on our experience with, over 20 years. And the Finding Your Way Back to God, what we observed is like if this was like the path of how you find your way back to God here, like from here, and you get to be God. Congratulations. But basically what we found is there's like 5 like awakenings that people go through. And the second awakening that people go through is what we call the awakening of regret. The first one's the awakening of longing. There's got to be something more. Okay, that's the first thing. Man, there's got to be something more. What's going on? I want to be loved. I want to find a purpose. I got to make sense out of life. That's the first one. The second awakening is awakening to regret. And this feeling of, man, there's things that I did in pursuing those longings that I regret. Okay, I'm sure none of you guys have ever done that, right?
No.
But everybody else has. And what we found is that most people on their way back to God, they get stuck there in that second awakening, the awakening to regret. This is I want to start over. They don't know how to start over. And they end up doing the same stupid stuff over and over and over again. We call it the sorry cycle, where you feel sorry for yourself, you feel sorry about what you did, you feel sorry for your life. It's just called the sorry cycle. And so how do you get past regret? And so the whole book, then we said, there's so many who got stuck there. We said, let's just do a second book on starting over. And that's, yeah. And actually, if I got a couple extra copies we'll give away. It's the kind of thing, too, where we're going to do a series on it starting October 23rd, and we'll have a whole bunch of stuff. So both Finding Your Way Back to God and Starting Over are really designed to speak to people who either are on the periphery of the church or outside of faith, kind of looking in and wanting to find their way back. And so it's, I think, and we've used it this way, both of them are a great series to use like in the fall when you're hoping to attract brand new people for the first time. You want to have a weekend, a Sunday when you're inviting folks, or maybe it's a brand new year. Okay, like in January, start over, post-Easter, kind of a hook to get them to come back. So Starting Over, Finding Your Way Back to God, that's kind of our niche, so to speak. More than you wanted to know.
No, it's great, it's great. Tell us about Exponential Conference. I was here last year. I have a book on Exponential. Is that where it came from that book? How did you decide, I want to do this conference? Where did it come from? Where's the passion behind that one? Can you give us the director's cut?
Okay, yeah, I don't know what came to mind. You guys, any of you listen to Chance the Rapper? Chance the Rapper. Well, part of the reason I listen to Chance the Rapper is he's also a Chicago White Sox fan. But he has this song. He talks about when the praises go up, the blessings come down. He just talks about how the song is kind of God just keeps raining down blessings on me. And so it would be nice to say that we thought of this and it was a great master plan. It's just a nice thing that God did. Here's the story, real short. There used to be this church planting conference called the National New Church Conference. And one small little denomination did it for like 30 years. And we'd have a couple hundred people show up. And it was kind of fun. And then after they would do it for a couple days, then they'd view the people go in the back room and they'd argue over who was going to be in charge because nobody really wanted to be in charge. And so finally said, okay, you're going to be in charge next year. All right, I'll do it. That was the National New Church Conference. Well, my buddy Todd Wilson, he had become a Christ follower. He was an engineer out of the Navy. He was the executive pastor, and somehow he ended up in the room. They said, well, why don't you take it? Todd goes, okay, I'll take it. He took it over, and so instead of making it just for this one little group, he kind of opened it up to everybody. And that next year it went from, I don't know, like 200 people to almost 600 people. He had me come and speak. And if any of you know Todd, DJ, you know Todd well. If you know Todd, he's definitely a behind-the-scenes guy. Brilliant guy. Genius of a guy. But anyway, so he came to me and he said, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll do all the behind-the-scenes stuff. What if you become the up-front person? If you become like the face with it? Sure, how hard is that? And so he's the director and I'm the president. We've done this for the last 10 years now, and it went from 200 to 600 to 1,800 to a couple thousand to 3,000 to 5,000 in Orlando, and then we came to LA, and you guys were nice enough to show up. And then from LA, then we started doing these regionals. We had about 400 or 500 people show up in DC. We already got 700 people registered for the other regional in Chicago. We're going to be in Manchester next week. Actually, we're having some conversations about doing other places, maybe in Asia and that kind of stuff, or how we can help. So candidly, it's kind of like it kind of like found me, and I just kind of kept saying yes, and it's been an awesome ride just to be a part of it. It's a God thing, totally God thing.
Great. The purpose, one of the main purposes of Thirty.Network is to raise up the next generation of Asian American leaders in the church. This room is mostly comprised of pastors and leaders in the church in their 30s. We got a couple 40s in here, and we got 250s. I won't point at them. I know the most
I
personally.
see a couple people look
Yeah.
like they're past 30.
Yeah. 250s in
Well,
here.
they've been working really, really hard.
Yeah, I'm focusing on that 30s, right? Something squeezed in, all right? We're trying to raise up the next generation of Asian American leaders. We're trying to pull all of us together, share ideas, provide resources, and see how we can work together to do that.
Yeah.
Being involved with Exponential, being involved with all these conferences, very experienced pastor and leader in the church. What are some of the current trends right now that need to be known and understood in leadership and in ministry?
What are current? I mean, obviously I have a bias on this one, but this is kind of where I live, and Daniel and others too. I think there is the whole conference we're going to talk about this week is on the idea of becoming a level 5 multiplying church. Are you guys familiar with the becoming level 5 levels yet? Have you heard about this stuff? No? Okay, well I'll tell you one real quick, and this will be a little kind of taste of what I'm going to do in my main session. Basically, there's 350,000 churches in North America. Of those 350,000 churches, you can kind of put them into 5 different levels. Okay, level 1 would be what we call a church in decline, subtracting. Does that make sense? Level 1. Level 2 would be a church that's plateaued. That's just status quo. Of those 350,000 churches, about 80% of them would be in level 1 or level 2. You track with me so far? Level 1 or level 2. Level 3 church is what we call addition, or a church that's starting to grow. About 16% of all of those 350,000 churches are growing by addition. They're growing churches. Then now we have this other two categories, level 4 and level 5. Level 4 is what we call reproducing churches. Churches that have ever planted another church, churches that ever started another site. About 4% of the churches of those 350,000 would be at level 4. And if we dig a little deeper, what we're finding is probably only about half of those actually did it on purpose. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right? That was a split, but we're going to call it church plant. I'm sure this happens. You've never had that experience, but it happens out there. And when it comes to level 5, multiplying churches, what we're finding is there's almost none in the kind of the U.S. and North American context. There are a few exceptions, and you're going to hear from one of those people, like a guy like Ralph Moore. Ralph is a guy who will I'm going to interview him on the main stage. They've planted more than 2,200 churches from his church. That would be an example of level 5. And I'll tell you what, here's what's fascinating too, and feel free to hurry me up if I'm...
No,
good.
I am just mesmerized right now.
That's the same thing my wife says.
That's calling a woman, man.
That would be a compliment, right?
Yeah, all right.
Okay, there you go. But notice that when Ralph takes the stage in Canada, part of the reason we're interviewing Ralph is because he's not that compelling of a speaker. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but I mean it, think about this. The guy who's probably made a greater impact kingdom-wise in North America is not the guy who has great teaching gifts. Okay? In fact, I get on the phone with him when I was talking about coming to Exponential, and I think he'll be okay with me saying this. He says, well, you know, I kind of struggle with self-esteem. And I'm like, seriously? You're the only level 5 guy we found in this side of the world. But again, that's the kind of guy that God's using to do that kind of stuff. And so we're going to get to hear from him. So I say all that, okay, level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think one of the shifts that's happening in leadership is, I think a generation ago, okay, in Ray Chang's era.
Sorry.
He's one of the 50s?
He's one of the 50s.
60s getting closer.
Those are happening. A generation ago, I think most everyone aspired to be a level 3 church. I want to grow something large and big and make an impact. And candidly, that was probably the best examples that we had out there. And I don't say that in a derogatory sense towards a lot of those folks that we held up the standard, because I think there's a lot of good things that did come out of the church growth movement per se. But I think what we are seeing now is that particularly folks in your generation, thank goodness, are saying, you know what, I don't want to just grow something significant, but I also want to be a part of being a level 4 or level 5. I want to be a part of a reproducing church. I want to be a part of a multiplying church. Because as we begin to look at it, I don't want something that's just about my kingdom, but really it's about God's kingdom. I don't want to grow something that's just about increasing seating capacity, but increasing sending capacity. And in fact, I think we're starting to realize the fact that, and Daniel had my back on this, I think, that one church of 100 folks, okay, or its lifetime, if it'll be passionate about sending people and planting new churches, has exponentially more potential in it than a church of 10,000 folks. Because it goes on for generations, right? It creates movement. And so what we're seeing is, I think, a desire on the part of a lot of young leaders to go like, yeah, I do. If God's put within me the ability to grow something to 200, that's what I want to do. Or 500, that's what I do. 10,000, that's what I do. But I don't do that just to grow something. I do it so I can mobilize people to send those people to start new sites, to start new churches, all kinds of new expressions of ecclesia. Does that make sense? I think, candidly, I think that's a shift that's happening. And I keep talking about it a lot because I hope it's a shift that's happening. All right? And so when you go out here and they ask you, like, oh, so what did you get from Exponential? What do you think's happening in the church world? You're going, oh, all the young leaders want to be 4s and 5s. That's what I hope they'll go out there and say. And, but I do see that. And so we try to actually, on our platform, try to put those kind of people up there and challenge people to say, hey, these are what the heroes of tomorrow look like. And I think that's a big change.
Yes, great. In your experience, we have, again, a room full of pastors, leaders, barriers, pitfalls in ministry that we have to be aware of, obstacles that we have to be aware of so that we do not fall into these pits that compromise our leadership.
One of the things that my wife and I, when we have conversations about this kind of, it's not really a conversation about this, but it almost became kind of like a slogan for us, is if you blow it at home, you've blown it. And again, I just wrote a book called Starting Over. So I do believe that God can redeem any situation. But it would be nice if you didn't have to go through a divorce, you didn't have to go through some tough stuff with, tragic, unfortunate, unnecessary stuff with your kids, that kind of stuff. So I think we do have to live, okay, we want to live in a way that if I blow it at home, I've blown it. One of the things that I do every day, and this is I guess I want to be careful. I don't want to exaggerate. Maybe I don't get it done every day, but I try to do this every day. Actually, Wayne Cordero got me started on this journaling, and one of the things I do at the top of my journal, I write 4 letters here, and this is my own kind of self-leadership metric. And so I write these at the top of my journal. And this is a way that I can kind of determine how am I doing. And it's like a 5-minute checkup, not even 5 minutes, probably 3-minute checkup every day. And so basically I said, okay, Dave, how R stands for relational. Dave, how are you doing relationally? And this is just kind of how I'm wired. You may not be wired. If you're more of an artist than kind of leader or engineer, you won't think this way. But like for me, then I actually give myself a number on a scale of 1 to 10. So I'm going like today, I said 7.5. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10. But I also do this. I said it's trending down. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Because I'm away from home, and there's most stuff. So I said, not so great.
What's today? What do you give today?
Well, this is what I gave it today. This morning, that was at 7.5. It's trending down. Yeah. Well, it's just sometimes it is. It's okay. It's feeling bad for me. That's I got to shepherd this stuff. And then physically, I've been on kind of a roll lately physically because I've been doing a good job running. I also started lifting, which I hadn't done much of. And so it's kind of high, but the truth is I got sick. You can hear my cold. And so like over the weekend, I haven't run and stuff. So again, it's still high, but I'm kind of trending down. So I know I got to get this turned around. Mentally, I gave myself a 7.25. Exactly. And actually, and then spiritually, I gave myself a 7.0, and then both of those are kind of static. All right. And so then and basically what this does, relationally, physically, mentally, spiritually, every day I have to kind of reflect and go, how am I doing? And part of the reason I do this is I think what happens with a lot of leaders, we drift. And we might drift spiritually, and we don't realize it. We might drift mentally, we get weak mentally, we're not reading, we're not staying current on what's going on in the news, we're not challenging ourselves intellectually. We get, and I think we're wired up as whole people physically. You know, if we're not exercising, I think when we get sloppy physically, I think it does impact us relationally, mentally, and spiritually. And you know this is true. Some of you know this. Like you've trained for a race, am I right? And you're ready to go up. Maybe you're training for a race or some kind of event, and you're feeling good. And when you feel good physically, I mean, you feel a little more unstoppable, and it affects your whole leadership self. And of course, relationally, I mean, you know, things aren't. Yeah, you blow it at home, you blow it. And so, to me, this is a way that I it's not a foolproof way, but it's kind of a self-leadership tool that I use that helps make sure that if I'm drifting, at least I know it. Okay, hey, relationally and physically, you know, you gotta do something to get this thing turned around. Even though you're doing okay, it's not headed in the right direction. And these are kind of static, so you need to get them moving upward again. So that's something for me that's been a real helpful kind of tool that's evolved over the years.
That's great. Everyone take pictures of this. This is, that's good. That's good. That's what everyone really wants right there. We have a high value education. Asian American culture, high value education. You gotta go to the best school, you gotta get the grades. We have a room full of seminary students, there's professors in here, we have MDivs, THMs, PhDs, things, right?
That's awesome.
High value education. What are the things that seminary doesn't teach you that you need to know when you step into church leadership? You got a young buck who came into your church, you're gonna hire him, he just came out of seminary, he's thinking Greek and Hebrew all day. He thinks he's gonna exegete this passage and save lives. What is the thing that you what do you want to tell him that seminary didn't teach you?
Well, I mean, and all those things are all valuable.
Yes.
Those are very, very, very valuable things. I think, how do you start a small group?
Come on.
How do you start a small group from scratch? Not expect someone to go oh, here's 10 people interested in the group that you can lead. No, how do you go find 10 people who want to be in your group and you're going to lead them? How do you then decide which of those 10 people or 2 or 3 of those people you're going to pick as your apprentice so you can reproduce that small group? And then as you reproduce that group, how do you actually create a structure so you can coach those folks that allows you both to care for them, to disciple them, and to grow this into something significant so you can send those people out to do that all over again? I think there's some real, it's just harder in an academic setting to give them that, or maybe almost impossible to give them that kind of practical experience. And I think when you wed the two of those things, that's a terrific thing. One of the things that we've done at Community, the church I get a chance to pastor, we recently built a new auditorium. When we built this auditorium, we also built a leadership training center. And our leadership training center is designed to train church planners. And we would love to have all of you. Where's Patrick? Here, Patrick. Hey, Patrick, stand up here. You got some stuff there on that?
Hi, Patrick.
For a pizza.
Pizza.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We also, if you want to know about our leadership training center, Patrick can tell you how to. But it basically, and it's actually partnered with Wheaton Graduate School. So when you go through it, for those of you that value education, you do get 8 hours of free credit. But in addition to that, you get paired with a campus pastor, you get paired with a church planner, you get paired with a staff person who will help you learn how do we start a small group? How do I reproduce that small group? How do I actually start a church? And go through all those kind of experiences. So the practical side is the side that you often don't get. And so one of the things we're doing with our Leadership Training Center, which is really to train more and better church planners, is to give them both sides of that.
You guys, Dave obviously is a busy man. He's got a whole conference to run, but we do want to save some time for Q&A. I got a lot more questions here, but I want to give it up to you guys. Do we have some questions here for Dave before he gets off to his next meeting? Well, I'm just going to ask another question here.
Anybody?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, millennials, hot topic, obviously. What are the trends you see with millennials and church planners and anything that you're noticing? Obviously, it's very discouraging over here, but do you see anything that's different?
What's the part that's discouraging?
Well, you just hear that less of them are going to church, they're more nuns now, not spiritually active. So do you see that in the church world, the church planning? movement, or what do you think is the future for the women?
I think, candidly, I mean, okay, two things on that. 85% of all stats get made up on the spot.
I'm millennial.
One of the things I think we have, and the couple things on the whole, on the nuns, because really, we will find your way back to God, it was targeted towards that group of folks. What I see with nuns is, for the most part, it's what you, so for example, I just sent my youngest to college. So I have, so I guess I got 3 that are at that age. So 18, 23, and 26. If you did a survey right now, okay, my youngest, okay, would probably fall into that category. No, he's not going to church anymore. Why? Because he just started going to a new school. He's running cross country, he's running track, probably like most of us. And yeah, he occasionally shows up at this church or this church, this church. But I don't think it really reflects his spiritual condition. I think some of that, candidly, some of the statistics that we throw out there is sensationalized because you have a whole group of people that from 18 to 24 are basically just moving to a new college or a new setting and haven't landed yet. So there's some of that. The second thing on nuns too is, and I think this can be encouraging, is while they are nuns and they don't have a religious affiliation, that's what it means, they don't have a religious affiliation, 96% still believe in God in the United States. Okay? 96%. So they still believe in some, and I'm not saying, Jesus, but I'm just saying they believe in some kind of higher power. I think what you have in that group there is you have people that are actually searching and trying to decide, what do I think about this God that I believe in? How do I access this God I believe in? I don't really think they're so much have rejected it, but I think they're looking for some expression that makes sense to them. Does that make sense? And so I see it, candidly, as a tremendous opportunity. That if you have, okay, so we have huge numbers of people, or 50% of a certain age group that say they're nuns, but you still have the vast majority that say they believe in God. And I think that's just a great opportunity for us to say, okay, here, I mean, in our language, here's how you can find your way back to God, to create churches, to create safe places, to create communities where, no, here's how you can access this God that you actually believe in. So I'm not quite as discouraged as other folks are. And when I spend time, with millennials, I see a better understanding of grace. I see a fuller understanding of the gospel that includes reaching people that are lost, but also restoring God's dream. So with regards to things that are unjust in the world, but also, and increasingly so, I think also an idea about the church's movement, which we didn't have in a previous generation. So I don't know. I'm pretty optimistic about that.
Yeah, you're seeing a trend these days of Asians, getting on staff at traditionally Caucasian mainstream churches. You see sometimes the opposite, where it's an Asian church and they're trying to embrace this diversity thing because the community is different around them. Is there anything coming out of that as far as how the worldviews are kind of playing out? Because obviously if you're going to a Caucasian church from an Asian perspective, you got a predominant Western way of doing things. Then you got the Eastern coming in, and how does that staff member kind of work in that surrounding, and then vice versa? If you have a predominant Asian American church, but then you have someone that's not, that joined the staff. So anything coming out about that as far as, or is it too early to tell? Is it one of those things where, obviously a lot of passages in the Bible that talk about the gospel breaks those barriers, right? And
well, yeah, I think obviously the gospel does, but I think everybody's still trying to work through it. My experience has been that there's a whole lot of conversations that need to be had just like this. I sat down last week with an African American leader from our church who is not going to be on our staff anymore, and so I just was, and I asked him, hey, just give me a whole long list of things. As a person of color, what was your experience here at community? And it was so helpful. And he was really candid. I mean, he said things like, one of the things he said is, I think, and we are at community still predominantly Anglo, he said, the next person of color you bring in a high leadership capacity like this, you need to make sure you pair them with a person as he said it, who gets it, and not someone who's still trying to get it. He said that made it really hard for me. He said the person I was reporting to was a great person. He had my back, but was still in kind of in development in some of these challenges culturally, and he was trying to get it, but he didn't yet get it. According to this person, I think he was right in his observation, and because of that, I think this young African American leader, he always had to show up at every meeting, and this person would inadvertently say something stupid. And I mean, or I said something, say something stupid, and so he would always have to be the one extending grace, going, okay, I know he's trying to get it. And you guys know way more about this than I do, okay? And we've done, and you're probably well aware, we've done some of that even here at Exponential, said some stupid stuff, okay? And so you have to be with, okay, once again, I have to be with people who are trying to get it. And so he was like, if there's a way for me to get paired with a person who gets it, and not always be oversaw by a person who's trying to, and that would be a big one. So, I mean, there was a learning around that. I'm trying, it wasn't this summer, but last summer, and this is more about, not so much American Asian, in this case it's African American culture. I spent a good part of a week in Berkeley, California with a friend of mine, Michael McBride. I don't know if you know Michael McBride or not. Michael started a church there called the Way Christian Center, and they were having their 10-year anniversary. And for their 10-year anniversary, are you familiar with Dr. Cornell West? Yes. Okay, so he had Dr. Cornell West come in. And, I mean, Dr. West is dramatically different than what typically happens in the suburbs that I live in Chicago. But I got to go out there, be with Michael, who, and I'm not saying one way or another, and you guys can figure this out sometime when we have conversations, but I mean, he's a huge champion for Black Lives Matter. And so for me to be in that setting with Michael, and then also get to spend time with Dr. West, who, by the way, was tremendously gracious. When I walk in, he acts like I'm a big deal. He's hugging me and stuff. You don't know this guy. You'll see him on CNN. He's been a professor, I think, at Harvard, Notre Dame, I think Princeton. He wrote a book called Race Matters, which is a great book. Also, when he spoke at the church, I was probably like almost the only white person in front of 1,000 people, all African American there. I mean, when he's speaking, it was, way more Jesus, way more the cross, way more the gospel, way more all that than I do. Even I was like, wow. And it was just, and I guess I say all that because I think all of us as leaders, we need to find ways to, and probably there's more burden on us white folks. How do we cross the bridge to get into other cultures? Because we got to quit being people who are trying to get it and be people who get it. And the only way you get it is if I spend time and I hear your story. If I hear your story of, here's why it's hard, to be an Asian American. Here are the challenges that you never see that I have to deal with every day. I think that makes the biggest difference. But on the other hand, like, we were talking. I mean, Patrick's our director for a new thing. Love Patrick. But I think the face of the future looks more like most of you than it does like Patrick. And so I think there's a real burden on, I think particularly people like myself, to be like, okay, how do we continue to bridge that gap? And we have leaders who move in both directions.
Well, we want to allow Dave to conserve his energy. He's got a meeting to go to. He's got a lot of people to talk to. But in this group, we have pastors and leaders who have grown up in Asian American church their whole life. But we have a lot of people here also who understand we are in a multi-ethnic world. There might be the next Dave Ferguson in this room. So, last words for us. What would you want to say to maybe that next Dave Ferguson in this room? So there might be the next Dave here.
I don't know if I can frame that one. You know what? Here's what I'll do. And I don't know if you guys will take me up on this or not. This is my email address. My real one.
He doesn't go to Patrick.
Where's Pat? Pat's the back. Pat's my assistant, so it's actually going to come straight to Pat and I. Pat, I see this, right? And so this is the one that comes. If there's any way that myself and community can serve you, feel free to email me and say, hey, you're talking about this, I heard this at Exponential. We also, so we have Community Christian Church, we have our locations across the city and suburbs of Chicago. If that's a place you'd be interested in serving, okay, and find out what we got, we'd love to hear from you. We also have what we call New Thing. New Thing's our church planning network. Patrick oversees that. We have about 1,200 churches globally that are now a part of the reproducing churches. That's New Thing. And then, of course, there's the Exponential Conference, which is also continuing to expand. But I think it was Bob Goff. Bob Goff says, everybody has a vision, right? You heard him talk about this? Everybody has a vision. Everybody has a big dream. And it's not so much important having a big dream, big vision, but having it be accessible. So, for me to be accessible to you, this is my email address. Okay? And if there's ways that I can help you, and there's anything that you've heard me say, anything you've heard about New Thing, anything from Exponential that you think could help you, you would actually serve me. You would actually serve me by letting me help you. Okay? And we'd like to be accessible to you. Okay? So, thanks for what you're doing here. Keep up the good work. Really excited about your future, and would love to help however we can. Right?
All right, let's give it up for Dave. You got some free copies of this book. I have power here now.
You have
so,
the power.
yeah.
Those are actually advanced reader copies. They're not the hardback. They give us those for free, but they're exact same books.
All right, thank you so much, Dave. All right, thank you, Dave. Okay, we're gonna move on to our third speaker, and it's actually a member of our executive team, Mr. DJ Schwam, who is the master of networking and a conference guru. Recently wrote a book. This is great. He's going to talk a little bit about his book, and I'm going to invite Angela Yee up here, who's also part of our executive team, and she will be doing some Q&A with you. So can we welcome Angela and DJ, please?
So DJ, we're really excited about your book. Do you want to just tell us a little bit what it's about?
Well, multiasian.church is the website and the title of the book. It's on the back of your flyer. It's about Asian Americans leading in a multi-ethnic world. And one of the things that I've observed over the past 10 years or so is this new kind of church that I'm calling next generation multi-Asian churches, which are Asian Americans like yourself that have a bicultural background and able to navigate multiple cultures. And it's reaching Asians and non-Asians alike. And I think God's doing a new thing, and I would like to know about it.
So can you tell us a little bit, how did this book come about? What led you to construct this book?
I just have a heart for Asian Americans, and so since I graduated from seminary back in 1995, I have this habit in my spare time and on my own dime. I'll go to a lot of conferences, and I'll go meet up with young Asian American pastors to just get to know them and find ways to connect them to each other and to resources. And been doing that for almost 20 years now. So I was pastoring out of seminary. I pastored in a traditional Chinese church, and then in a multi-ethnic church with Pastor Ray Chang here, who wrote the foreword for my book. I realized after 5 years of pastoring that I could pastor okay, but who needs an okay pastor? and so I realized that God gives us permission to dream and to have vision and to use everything we have, not just our skills and talents, but also our heart and our desire and our impulses, good impulses, and to make a difference in the world. And so I found my place coming alongside pastors and connecting them to resources. And along the way, I see this new thing happening, and I want to write this book to encourage the next gen young leaders, and also to soften the hearts of those who are older pastors, both Asian pastors and non-Asian pastors, to realize how much potential we have here in the 30-something Asian American pastors, and to give them a better story. Yeah, we all have our scars and struggles dealing with our two cultures, but I've written this as a hopeful book that I'm hopeful that it will create a new future for us.
That's great. So multi-Asian is actually a new term that DJ coined. So I was wondering if you could explain a little bit, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's kind of a nuanced definition, because I found the terms Asian American or Pan-Asian or third culture to be insufficient to describe how we're more than just Asian American. We actually have something to offer to the multi-ethnic world. And so multi-Asian is a portmanteau, for those of you that like puns and wordplay. It's a portmanteau, it's a mashup of two words, Asian American and multi-ethnic. Multi-Asian.
So what would a multi-Asian church look like? What would a multi-Asian church look like? What are some
It
examples?
looks like different things. I found about 300 of them, and the whole list is there at multiasian.church. It's churches like what Wilson Wang has planted. It's featured in the book. Ray Chang has planted 2 of them in his lifetime, and a handful of other ones that he's been coaching and networking and training up other boot camp leaders. I would even say Saddleback Church, Irvine South, is a multi-Asian church. You have a good mix of Asian and non-Asian pastors on staff as well as in the congregation. And so it just has that Asian flavor in a broader context that welcomes people from all kinds of backgrounds. And I think the treasure that we have by accident, but also sovereignly, is we inherently have the life experience of navigating multiple cultures. Most people don't have that. As much as in the next room they have a multi-ethnic pre-conference, as much as Anglos and African Americans, Latinos desire to build bridges cross-culturally, we have it in our DNA. And if we bring that as an offering to the wider church, I think it can bring some healing, as well as not just for others, but also for ourselves.
That's very encouraging. So what are some trends or things that you see in multi-Asian churches that, that might give us a glimpse of the future?
What are some trends? Well, the book is the trend. So I described about a dozen different multi-Asian churches that are doing unique things. And I described the characteristics and interviewed the pastors to say, hey, tell us your story. Why did you plant this church? What's your vision for the church, and how is it? What's your compelling story? So each of us have a story individually. Each church has a story to tell for the community. And so the trend is it's so new that we're creating a new future as we talk. And that's why I wrote the book as an ebook, so that I could publish quickly. I don't know if you, and I found out there's just so many details in publishing a book, even an ebook. So today, the book has just launched an hour ago, multiasian.church, and I'll give you a discount code after we finish. But the trend is that our next generation are creating these new kinds of churches, and we have much to encourage them and much to learn from them. And part of why we're gathering as 30.Network is so that we can learn from each other. Because when you go into uncharted territory, it's scary, and part of our Asian culture is risk averse, and there's wisdom in that, but there's also fear in that. But we can move in faith with those new visions and serve a wider church. So I think the trend is we're creating a new future by the grace of God, and it's very exciting for me. It's very hopeful, and I'm hoping it will bring a lot of hope and healing and grace that we all need, and ultimately to erase shame is what I call it. And I want to just mention my editor is here, Diana's son, so she helped me clean up the language in the book. And then my wife is outside, she's nursing a cold, so that's why she's not jumping in. My wife's wearing orange. One of the things you'll find out about me is I love orange, so that's why the book is orange also.
I noticed you have an orange cell phone cover. That's really
Yes.
awesome. There's an orange car.
I have 2 orange cars. Those are a few things that are trending, and I really wrote the book for the next generation and really want to encourage you and to soften some of the older leaders to say, hey, you're our future. Let's really invest in you and encourage you. I just turned 50 this July, so I'm one of those 50-somethings that jumped into the here.
So one of the things I appreciate about your book is that it's got a lot of data, which appeals to the intellectual side, but it's also very practical. There's some call to action items in there. Can you give some examples of what are some of the call to actions that we would pertain to us as leaders here?
Yeah, chapter 11 is my playbook for the future of the rest of my life. I've come to realize my own mortality, coming to 50. But it's in chapter 11. Basically, it's that we have a voice that we can use. So one of the things that you'll find online, a lot of us do our research and connect with people online. Asian Americans have the highest percentage of using the internet, but our voice is kind of muted. We're not using our voice and developing a platform, not so much for ourselves, but just to share what we're learning in our life with God. So using our voice is number one. Number two, gathering as leaders. There's no national gathering of key leaders to look at a broader agenda beside our own little tribe. So to have that kind of gathering can really propel us to a whole nother level as an Asian Americans. And then thirdly, Asian American philanthropy. Asian Americans are the most wealthy in terms of education and finances, highest family median income. That's not to say that some Asian Americans are struggling financially. There's also about 12% that are below the poverty line. Some of those statistics are in the early chapters of the book. But it is to say we have a lot to offer to the world, and if we would be inspired by God to do that, we can really make a huge dent in the universe. So I hope to open up the hands of people that have the wealth, not just invested, but we're good at investing and making it as a whole. We can do so much more strategically giving that away for the kingdom of God.
Wow, thanks. Can you tell us how we can get the book, find out more about it?
Yes, the book is online, ready for download, multiagent.church. There's free Wi-Fi online. And just for you, the discount code is 30, spell out the word 30, and you'll get 30% off.
30 should 30%.
So I play with the numbers a little bit. We named 30.Network. We'll close with what 30.Network's about, but that's for you. And then multiagent.church, that's the website. And then a little Easter egg at the bottom of the buy the book page, you can pay for what you want. So if you're strapped with cash or you want to be generous, just name your price, buy the book, share the word. It's for the next generation. The print edition will be laid out hopefully by Christmas, and so that'll be coming later. But digital first, want you to have it immediately, and would love to have some conversations with you about it.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for DJ though? All right, well, I hope you get a chance to look at this book. I did read it. It's really good. A lot of really insightful
Angela
stuff.
endorsed it here. Kevin Lynn endorsed it.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So when you think about multi-Asian churches, what are some of the unique facets those churches have versus other churches that are multicultural?
Oh, great question. That last part was a curveball. Hey, Wilson, you're on it. One of the reasons I wanted to call out multi-Asian was that because a Asian American-led multi-ethnic church is different than a multicultural church. I think because of our bicultural background, we have this instinct to say things without saying it. And so we're whether we recognize it or not, and have it developed it or not, we can be pretty masterfully indirect in how we communicate, but we still gets in it because the heart. And I think we don't have to talk about racial reconciliation as a confrontational, you hurt me, you better apologize. But we have ways of fellowshipping and building relationships and getting to know people's stories that's a lot more holistic and a lot more healing. And in the book, I also mentioned your story of some unique characteristics of a multi-Asian church as well. So I think we have so much to offer, and this book is just to open that window to say, hey, I want to open this up using what little resource I have. I mean, I had no budget, so this is all a step of faith. God's provided for me in other ways. And actually, I'm donating 100% of the proceeds of the book to 30.Network. I really believe in what God is doing here. I mean, we just launched this thing.
Is your wife here?
God's doing something in this next generation, and I'm just really grateful to be a part of it. The story of 30.Network's in the book too. So it's all there. Yes, Ray Chang.
Yes, tomorrow morning, when you do your seminar, you're going to be sharing a lot of the content.
I can do that, sure. I'll do a public reading of my book. I hear that's the new thing.
You can sign our iPhones and our iPads.
So we want to make room for conversation. That's what we're gathering for. Thank you, Angela, for being part of the 14.
All right. Hey guys, we wanted to wrap up here a little bit, and let me give you some next steps. Let me first talk about this. This is a personal invite from Mr. Dave Ferguson himself. It is a free pizza lunch happening tomorrow, 11:45 in this building. It just says the building. I don't know what room, but it says in this building, and this is what he was promoting about planting churches and his new thing network. So I'm going to pass this around. Go ahead and take this. And I'll be having tomorrow free lunch. We do two types of gatherings here at the 30.Network. This is an example of one type of gathering. This is called our access points. Access points is when we gather all of our leaders and pastors like you guys coming into a room where we can have these guest speakers come in, and we do it at things like Exponential, other conferences, other events. We're taking advantage of this huge event, and we wanted you guys to gather here since you're here anyways, and we wanted to create these access points for you guys not only to network together, but also for you to learn more about 30.Network. The second type of event we have is our actual signature 30.Network gathering, which is coming up this February. That is our official 30.Network event, where we're going to get 30 of you together, spend 30 hours together, and usually we do it at a hotel, spend one night, 2 days. So those are the two types of gatherings we do. We have a blog for 30.Network contributors. It's a place where you could build your own voice, learn how to build a voice, and learn more about how to share your thoughts to the world. So we want to invite you to contribute to that blog. And so I don't know where Sam Yoon went, but Sam Yoon was up here. He is the editor of that blog. So you guys want to get in contact with Sam Yoon and ask him, hey, how can I contribute and be part of the 30.Network blog? Please talk to him about that. I want to point your attention to this flyer. You guys all should have gotten a flyer on your seats. And here are some next steps that are coming up that relates to the 30.Network. There's an Asian American Ministry Conference coming up November 5th. That is at Biola University. It is the third one, I believe. The third Asian American Ministry Conference, head up by Dr. Pastor Reverend Ben Shin right here, whom I'm sure almost all of you know. It is coming up. The 30.Network will be doing 2 seminars at this network. One of them is going to be by Kevin Wynn and DJ Schwang. It's called Leading Asian American Leaders in a Multi-Ethnic World. The second seminar will be done by Ms. Angela Yee, and she is doing a seminar on organizing effective church events. Angela has a great background and history of being the organizer of gigantic conferences of like 10,000, 20,000 people, and she used to run and plan these conferences. And so those are the 2 seminars that the 30.Network will be hosting at that conference. And so I wanted just to point out Dr. Benshin right here. He is right here. Please connect with him if you want to learn more about that conference. Again, this is about networking. So he is also a professor at Talbot School of Theology. For those of you who want to get into academics, I want you to please connect with Dr. Benshin right here. Another event coming up is the SEND Conference. SEND Conference is hosted by the Southern Baptist Convention. It's coming up February 3rd and 4th. We wanted to promote this conference. This is a great conference for you all to get out there. Anyone who's interested in going to that conference We have discounted tickets. We have discounted tickets available for you. I think it was like maybe $40, $30 or $40 when it's about 130 right now. Great conference to go to, all about church planning, how to reach out to your city. Data Platt will be there, Francis Chan will be there. Another great event to please come out to.
We're also working on a gathering just like this, an access point with some of those key speakers. So something like this for a pre-conference, so that's what we're doing.
So please look out for our emails about that. We'll be gathering over there. And then a Signature 30 event, 30-Network event will be happening February. We're trying to lock down the date and hotel right now. So please look out for that. That will be our signature event. And so these are some things to look out for and be aware of. I wanted to, again, just highly emphasize networking. I just wanted to point out Victor back there. Victor is a church planter with the SBC. He's planted many churches. Please connect with him. We have Pastor Ray Chen here. He has his own church planting network called Regenerate. Please connect with these guys. If you guys are interested in church planting, please network with them. It will be great. We have, yes?
Can I make one announcement?
Go ahead.
Just one. I just want to introduce the contingency from Korea that are here. They are going to be sponsoring Expo in Korea next year. And so they are here. I just wanted to welcome them. And if you have a chance to connect, any of you are interested in taking Expo to Asia, which is kind of our next step, they are going to be one of the forerunners for that. So Steve Cho over there with the hat, he is the connection point. So I just wanted to introduce
All right, here's Thank you so much for being here. All right, you guys, we have a lot of snacks in the back. Please take all of that. We don't want to take any of that with us. Please, chips, water, all that is for you. Take this time to network. Daniel Lim is here. Please pick his brain, you guys. He is someone that you want to network with as well. And please go ahead and utilize his time. Thank you for being here, you guys. God bless.